something that I call the liquid landlord strategy. And I think I'm going to save that for tomorrow. But basically, I was going to grab stock and show you how people are able to generate a lot of money selling stock options and just kind of break that down for you really quick. Because I talked to a sister yesterday. We did a consultation, and she has really been a saver through the years. She had over $1 million in her stock portfolio. And one thing that she mentioned that really concerned me was she mentioned that there's a lot of really scammy financial information out there. That there's a lot of these people that get you into day trading. And she said she lost a lot of money in day trading. It was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she also mentioned house flipping and how that can be a win or lose depending on if you know what you're doing. And a lot of people have lost money with that kind of stuff. And she said what she was always looking for was step-by-step basic instructions on how to actually implement things. And she sort of felt like some of that she would go to these seminars, and she said, I went to the Tony Robbins seminars and the what else did she say? Robert Kiyosaki, and she said I'd walk away with a binder full of information, and I would have no idea where to start. Like it would just, I'd still be confused. And I said, oh, that's really interesting, and it made me think about other experiences I've heard other people have in terms of just not really getting the straightforward, simple stuff that'll really get you started and help you solve a problem. And so, as you guys know, my background is mathematics, and that's what we do. Mathematicians solve problems. You can't just talk about the problem. You actually have to have a solution. And so, I'm really, really interested in things that provide real solutions. So, stock options and creating income from that is something that I've seen as a solution that I know a lot of you have implemented that has been very successful for you. And so, what we can do is tomorrow we'll do the whole liquid landlord breakdown. It won't take that long, but I guarantee you that if you haven't seen it or done it before, it's really going to make a difference in terms of saying, okay, this is where the money is. This is how I get it. And and I think that that helps. And I told her, I said, I think that one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of times, and tell me if you've noticed this, that a lot of times financial experts, they want to sound smart. So they use really long words and really complex strategies that end up confusing people because they want to impress them by saying things in a way that a lot of people don't understand. And I was like, I don't really have that issue. I'm not trying to sound smart. I have a PhD in this stuff, so I don't need to pretend to be smart. Like I know what I'm talking about. And so my goal is to keep it simple. My goal in everything that I learned in finance. In fact, I heard this a long time ago. They said if you can't explain a concept to a 5-year-old, then you don't truly understand it. You don't truly understand it. And so, so really, I guess that's something that we've gotten really good at is I've gotten really good at using analogies to make things simple. And the reason I use analogies is because I don't want to just learn something. I want to understand it, connect to it, and feel it. Like literally feel it coming through my veins. Like it's an emotional process. When I feel it and I feel connected to it, what happens is so learning really is it's part intellectual, I think it's part emotional. And so when I emotionally connect to a concept, what happens is I start connecting it to other things that are happening in my life, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's just like when your wife forgets to bring home the ice cream, and you really wanted chocolate milk." You know what I mean? Like, and that's where the analogies come up. They just kind of flow, and it's not something that I kind of contrive. It's more like, "Oh, I get it. So we already understand this." And I'm gonna tell you this. This is the secret about finance and economics is most financial concepts that I could explain to you, even the most advanced concepts, you already know these things. You already understand them. God put an encyclopedia inside your spirit that allows you access to all the information in the universe. I think that they might compare that to collective consciousness or something. Uh, what my job is to maybe activate that, right? Like if I talk about diversification and I say, well, you just don't put all your eggs in one basket, you kind of already know that, right? You know that. Or if I talk about risk, you know what risk feels like. You know what it's like to be in a risky situation, not have or a non-risky situation. Or if I talk about options and I say having lots of options is good, you know what I mean. You know what it feels like to tell me, give me a yes if you know what I'm talking about. You know what it feels like to have no options. I don't have to explain that to you. So you know the value of options inherently because you know what it feels like to be in a relationship where you have no options or in a relationship where you got lots of options. You know what it feels like to have a job where you have no options versus when you have lots of options. And so some of these basic ideas translate and connect to more complex ideas. But what I really encourage you to do in order to avoid being intimidated by finance and economics is don't let the complexity of the idea make you run away from the core concept, right? Does that make sense? Like a lot of times we'll just see it and we'll be so intimidated by the by just the way it all looks. And finance, it looks professional, it looks, there's a sort of a class orientation to it where it's like, oh well, the only people that talk about finances are these sophisticated hedge fund managers that have millions of dollars and wear fancy suits and all went to Harvard. No, everybody needs money. Money is financial oxygen for a lot of us. We need it to just breathe and exist in a capitalist society. So everyone has a relationship with money. And really, at the end of the day, I saw someone use the term financial therapist. I don't know, my wife, I think my wife would be better suited to be a financial therapist, but maybe combined together, we're able to do that because at the end of the day, my goal and my job is to make sure that that is a healthy relationship, right? Because remember, money is an accelerator of your life. Money can make your life worse or it can make your life better. And I see so many things. I'm scrolling through the internet and I see so much stuff about money. And I'm like, ooh, that's not healthy. Ooh, that's really good. Or ooh, that's so bad. Or ooh, that's not going to end well. Or ooh, that's okay. Wow, that's good. I like that. Right. And in fact, I'm gonna share something with you in a second that will allow us to dig into today's conversation in a way that hopefully will make your economic life better. And before I forget, before I move on, I want to mention I spoke to Dr. Ken Harris today about the All Black National Convention. It's going to be epic. It's literally the biggest convention we've ever had, and unfortunately, again, the tickets have been sold out. But I'll bring you as much content as I can from the convention. I think we're going to do something digitally for those of you that couldn't make it. So within about maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we sort of recover from just all the madness of the convention, I'll reach out and maybe we can do like a digital version where I'll bring in some of the experts and we can do private conversations around that. And what else did I miss? I'm super excited. I think what I'm most excited about is meeting the president of Tuskegee, Dr. Mark Brown. I keep mentioning him, but I don't mention his name. I have his name. I told you I'm bad with names. But anyway, Dr. Brown's going to be at the convention, and I'm excited just to talk to him about our daughter going to Tuskegee and just how much respect I have for the institution. And it's I really look forward to just I don't know. I'm really excited about the future right now. All right. So anyway, with that being said, let's jump right into the discussion. So I'm gonna share something that I put on my Instagram, and this is about a family called the Patels. And the Patels own a lot of hotels. So it's funny that Patel almost rhymes with hotel, right? I don't know if that was intentional or maybe that's why they subconsciously wanted to buy up all the hotels because their name rhymes with hotel, almost, kind of, sort of. And anyway, apparently there's this Indian family that just owns just so much space in the hotel industry that people are like, how did y'all do it? Like, how did you get this much power? And I'm gonna play this video. And I was watching this video. It's on my Instagram, which is Dr. Boyce Finance, and and that's me looking weird sitting next to the video because I guess that's the only way to share the content is you have to do what they call I forgot what they call it on Instagram when you I don't even have the words for it. Anyway, it's where you're sitting there and you're watching the video with the people watching it. I don't know what I'm sure they have a name for it, but I'll think of that later. All right, so here, it's not screen share. It's called something duet. I think it's called duet. Yeah. Anyway, so here is the video about the Patels. Give me a yes in the chat if you can hear this video. I'm gonna try to turn this up so everybody can hear it. Here it goes.
20% of the motels in the country are under Patel ownership. What happened was a small number of Patels came into the United States in the early 70s, the refugees. They realized that if we buy a really small motel, 10, 12, 14 room motel, the family can live in 1 or 2 rooms and the family can do all the work.
It's a job and a house together.
Yeah, so basically cooking, cleaning, front desk, laundry. And because they had no costs, they were able to charge nightly rates that were lower than all the neighboring motels. So what would happen is the Patel-owned motel would be running 100% occupancy. The other motels couldn't match that rate because they'd lose money. And as their nephew came of age, they would help him out to buy his own motel. And then the nephew would get that going, and then the next one, the next one. You run this for 50 years, and they've actually gone up market now. So a lot of the Hiltons, Marriotts, Westons, if you really look, you'll find it's under Patel ownership. And then they went into 7-Eleven. 70% of the motels in the country are under Patel ownership. What happened was a small number of Patels came into the United States in the early 70s, the refugees. They realized that if we buy a really small motel, 10, 12, 14 room motel, the family can live in 1 or 2 rooms, and the family can do all the work.
It's a job and a house together.
Yeah, so basically cooking, cleaning, front desk, laundry. And because they had no costs, they were able to charge nightly rates that were lower than all the neighboring motels. So what would happen is the Patel-owned motel would be running 100% occupancy. The other motels couldn't match that rate because they'd lose money. And as their nephew came of age, they would help him out to buy his own motel. And then the nephew would get that going, and then the next one, the next one. You run this for 50 years, and they've actually gone up market now. So a lot of the Hiltons, Marriotts, Westons, if you really look, you'll find it's under Patel ownership. And then they went into 7-Eleven, 70%.
Okay, so were you able to hear that? I let it play twice to make sure everybody heard it. How many of you were impressed by that? How many of you were kind of like, holy crap, that was pretty amazing. I was really impressed by that video, and I said, I want to bring this to class because I think this is so powerful. This is actually, I mean, when I wrote my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, this is what I was thinking about. And I said, okay, let's really analyze and dissect this so we can understand why the family unit, which they took away from a lot of us, is the multi-trillion-dollar asset that we've been looking for. And codes of conduct, as Dr. Claude Anderson talks about in books like Powernomics, are so important in terms of building solid business models. So without me getting scrambled everywhere, I'm going to start with one thing that jumped out at me. One thing that jumped out at me was the long-term perspective, the financial consciousness that they applied in terms of really having a strategy that didn't provide necessarily instant gratification. They didn't start the business saying we're going to make as much money as possible tomorrow. They started the business by doing something a lot of companies have done. Amazon has done this. A couple other Chinese companies are notorious for this. They didn't charge the highest price they could. They lowered the price. Like a lot of times you'll hear people on the internet that'll say never lower your prices, never always know your worth, stuff like that. They didn't do that. What they did was they lowered their price to acquire market share. And then what happens is once you acquire market share, then you can increase your price. So a lot of companies have done this strategy. There are companies out here that are worth billions of dollars now that were losing money for years before they actually started trying to make money. Amazon is probably the most notorious that you would know about. For years, Amazon was losing so much money that people thought Amazon was a failed business. They said this is a crazy business model. This is terrible. I think Jeff Bezos went on some talk show and he was like, "Yeah, we he said something like, yeah, we lost $100 million," and he kind of laughed about it, right? And that's because he had a strategy. The strategy was I'm gonna acquire market share and then later on I can raise my prices. I don't have to do it right now. So this family, part of their strategy was we're going to lower our prices so that we can run everybody else out of business, acquire as much market share as possible, and then we'll get our money later. The money will come later. And this is, and I'm not saying that every business should run the same way. I'm saying that there are lots of businesses that do. So don't ever listen to someone who says you should never, ever, ever, don't ever lower your prices. No, you work with the customer, you acquire the customer, you serve them, take good care of them, and believe me, the law of reciprocity kicks in. You will get what you earn in life typically. You're gonna get yours. So just take your time. The second thing that jumped out at me was the each one teach one successful family member reaches back to help others. So if you recall, toward the end of the video, they had the part where they said that the son gets older and he opens a hotel and gets it going, and then they help the next one. They help the next one. This is not new for you. This is not something that Black people don't understand. There's nothing magical about Indian culture that says that they're just so much wiser than African American people are. That's not true. You're very wise. Unfortunately, American society, colonialist thinking, American capitalist colonialism made you a little bit stupid. Or at the very least, it made you have a little bit of amnesia because check this out. Your elders already know this. They already understand what it means to have a community and a family where each successful person reaches back and helps somebody else. You only learn selfishness probably in the last 40 or 50 years when you were trained to trade in your land and your businesses for student loans and corporate jobs and just rampant individualism. That's what that you learned that's new for you because let me tell you a little secret. I brought in a guest and I'm sure the video's out there somewhere. Her name was Dr. Mary Stoddard. Does anybody remember my conversation with Dr. Mary Stoddard out of Louisville, Kentucky? She's a proud AKA. She is an attorney. She is a PhD. Her husband, Dr. Marcus Stoddard, is one of the most respected cardiologists in the country at the University of Louisville. And Dr. Stoddard told the story about her family that grew up, I think, in Louisiana, and they were dirt poor. I think that would be an accurate term to use. They did not have any money, but they had something more valuable than money. They had family, they had love, they had a mother and a father, they had a plan. And so, what the Stoddard family did, these sharecroppers from Louisiana who ain't supposed to amount to nothing, at the very least, they're supposed to have an 80% failure rate when it comes to producing children that are successful. This family literally had 17 children, all of whom graduated from college. 17 children from a sharecropper family with a 100% college graduation rate. 17 kids, every one of them finished college. And you go to Chicago public schools and you can't find one child in some of these schools that can read, write, or do math at grade level. So I need to ask you, when you have families like this out here in your own community, why are these families not studied? Why do we not have our best and brightest scholars dissecting these models of success so that we can replicate this like an antidote, like a serum, like something that like a medication that can cure the ignorant Negro virus that has been spreading rampant through the music and through the culture. I watched a video with this rapper named what was his name? NBA Youngboy. I think that was who it was. He's got about 18,000 kids, about 20,000 babies mamas, and people think he's successful because he's famous. And he was on an Instagram live arguing with another illiterate rapper about something stupid, and they're threatening to kill each other. And on this video, there's 80,000 people watching, 80,000 people watching this video. And then I go to another Instagram channel and I see somebody like Dr. Ma'at, who has a PhD in engineering, who teaches at, I think I don't know if it's Bowie State. She teaches in Maryland. And she's literally breaking down scientific ways to create successful children. And there's maybe, 8 people on the live stream or something, right? And so that right there, Morgan State. Thank you, Ricardo. It's Morgan State. I said Bowie. I'm sorry. I don't remember the specifics. I feel things. I can't remember. I can't memorize. But anyway, but I love Dr. Ma'at. And so the point of the matter is to say this is really symptomatic of how sick the community is. It's sick. Dr. Mary Stoddard, and I'm gonna finish telling more of the story so you'll understand how the story, and that's not all. But Dr. Stoddard should be the most famous black woman in America. Like she should be right there with all the most famous rappers because it's like, oh, we figured it out. This problem that we claim we can't solve, like we can't figure out how to educate black people because they just too stupid and the problems are too vast and we just need to vote for the same politician. No, they got the solution. And they didn't get it from the Democrats. They didn't get it from the Republicans. They didn't get it from corporate America. They didn't get it from society. They got it from each other. So Dr. Stoddard, let me just finish the story so you'll just know how many excellent people you have in your community. Her name is Dr. Mary Stoddard. She spoke at the All Black National Convention 2 years ago, and I needed her to speak because I needed people to hear their formula. So they had 17 kids, all the children of sharecroppers, all of them graduated from college, and part of their model was very similar to what the Patels do according to this video. When one child got to college and got a little job, they would send money home. Then when they graduated college and got their good job, they would send even more money home to help the kids behind them. There was an expectation that you were responsible for your brother. There was an expectation that you were responsible for your sister. There was an expectation that you did have a life debt to the family and that the family had a life debt to you. And I want you to contrast that with how many people there are out here who say, I don't owe nobody nothing. I don't owe nothing to that man who helped me make this baby. I don't owe nothing to these kids. These kids don't owe nothing to me. Well, y'all, if y'all don't owe nothing to nobody, then guess what? You're all splattered and you're all spread out. And individually, they pick you off one by one. They destroy you one by one. That's colonialist divide and conquer. Did you not read the playbook? Did you not know the Willie Lynch model of destroying a community? You just get them to not want to be around each other, and then they're easy. It's easy to take them out one by one. That's why they made it illegal for black people to gather in groups during slavery. They said, well, when they get together and they're working together and they have a plan, they become an adversary, they become competition. But when they are individual, oh, that's easy. Anybody can take out one person. So, because a system can always take out an individual, just so you know that. If you're fighting systematic racism, you only fight systems with systems. Just like if you're in a derby and you're crashing into cars, you don't want to crash into a car with your body. You need a car. You need a vehicle. You need something that's going to allow you to be protected. You can't just say, "Well, I'm so strong, I'm going to tackle this car." It doesn't work. So literally trying to, as an individual, overcome a system is like it's like a football player trying to defeat a football team. I don't care if you take the greatest football player in the history of the world. If you take Tom Brady, Deion Sanders, any of the greatest players ever, one player could never defeat an entire team. So systematic racism is a team sport. Capitalism is a team sport. All this stuff, these obstacles and barriers that you run into, that's a team sport. But for some reason, people tell us to fight this as individuals. Doesn't work. Let's move on. So Dr. Mary Stoddard, in addition to now, this is where generational blessings can be passed as readily as generational curses. So, because of what her parents taught her when she was young, they valued education, they valued each other, they all contributed to the family. Principles that we talk about in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. So, Dr. Mary Stoddard, she didn't go and get pregnant by three rappers. She didn't go and have babies with three random dudes. She picked a great husband, Dr. Marcus Stoddard, who is a smart man, a stable man, a committed family man, and a provider like no other. And she stuck with that man. She didn't decide to leave, because the sex could have been better. She didn't decide that she had a bad month and that she needs to get a new baby daddy. She picked one guy. She bought him like a stock. He purchased he purchased the relationship and her like it was a stock. Not that they bought each other, but you get the point. They invested in each other, except they were investing something more valuable than money. They were investing love, time, and attention. And so they took each other in and they became assets to each other. And I'm sure, just like every other marriage, there's volatility. There was lots of challenges, but they didn't get into that. They said, we're committed to this because we're building an institution. So we're going to hold on to this, just like you invest in a stock, just like Warren Buffett says, you if you can't own a stock for 10 years, then you shouldn't be invested in this stock for 10 minutes. And I want you to contrast that to how people pick their relationships. Most people don't even understand basic neuroscience that says that if you are picking relationships for stupid reasons, like how great the sex is, that drug wears off about 6 to 8 months in. The dopamine is very, very high. That's why you act so crazy when you fall in love. And then about 6 to 8 months in, you start to find the little things that bother you about that person. And if you're not emotionally intelligent enough and disciplined enough to say, okay, I got to stick this thing out, we got to find another reason to be connected. Instead of tapping into the dopamine and the quick high and the things that make us happy, directly, we're going to tap into the oxytocin, the bonding chemical. We're going to tap into the vasopressin. We're going to tap into all these other things that can happen that allow us to create long-term strategic bonds. And that's what they did. So they got married, had 5 kids, and the 5 kids that they had, every single one of Mary Stoddard's 5 children is either a PhD or a medical doctor. Every single one. 5 for 5. 5 for 5. So after going 17 for 17, The next generation goes 5 for 5. Every one of those kids, one of them has a PhD in chemistry. And I'm not talking about these little flimsy doctorates that are out here. They didn't sign up for a weekend program or make a donation. I'm talking about they went through 5 years of a doctoral program, intense research program, and they literally 5 for 5 medical doctor. She's like, oh yeah, this one got a PhD from USC, or this one's on the faculty of such and such. 5 for 5. So what I'm trying to understand here is I need you to just, and again, we want to go back to the Patels, but I only talk about the Patels not because we want to sit around and glorify Indian people. They can do that themselves. I'm doing this because I'm trying to help you understand, or help us all understand, or ask ourselves, why is it that we don't sort of honor the great people in our own community? Why is it that we will celebrate a rapper who don't even can't even spell his mama's name, addicted to drugs, got babies' mamas splattered all over the country, creating trauma everywhere, broken families created everywhere. We'll look up to somebody like that, or that person will be on some podcast and they'll say, well, if you're in a relationship and the woman can't give you peace, then that's not the woman for you. And you'll be like, oh my God, that's so wise. Oh God, that's so Hercules, Hercules. He's so smart. No, he's not. No, he's not. Look at his life. It's a mess. It's a mess, but there are smart people in your community who make good choices, who are building empires right in front of you. Those are the heroes. Those are the black leaders to me. So Mary Stoddard and her husband Marcus, to me, those are black leaders. That's what we pay attention to. So let's get back to the Patel family in terms of how they build this generational wealth. Why is it that they that these immigrants come to America and they own more hotels than black people? That don't make no damn sense. And I know that they want to tell you, oh, it's cause of the racism. That's what it is. It's cause of the racism. Yeah, okay, racism is real, but no, I bet you if you go back and look at what they were doing to get those hotels, I bet that these were things that you could do as well. In fact, I know black families that are doing these things. That's why I need you to stop always sort of leaning on the crutch to make an excuse. Yes, the problems are there. Yes, the challenges are going to be there. But you and I both know that there are so many opportunities that we miss because we're so busy looking for reasons why something can't happen that we forget about all the reasons why something can happen. Okay, so because remember, African American people are the richest group of black people on the planet. The 1.7, $1.8 trillion per year that you have in income, it's 5 times greater than the gross domestic product of the richest country in Africa, South Africa, 4 times greater. Sorry, their GDP is 400 billion. Your income, your money you just that we spend on whatever, only God knows what, that's 4 times greater than that. So stop acting like black people are poor. We are not poor. If we're poor, then the whole world is poor. Stop that. All right, so anyway, let me give you some more principles you can pick up from the Patel thing. Number one, group economics. That's a basic one. The families they pull their money together and they buy property together. So there's no embarrassment and a shared sacrifice. A lot of generations will live under the same roof in the same house. So they don't have that rule that says, oh, when you're 18, you got to go. You got to go get a job. You need to go out here and work for the white man. No, they say stay here. Why would we this is cheap labor for the family. Why would we give that cheap labor away to a big corporation? Why would we give that to someone else? That's an asset. That healthy 18-year-old, hardworking, healthy 18-year-old who's smart and can do things. Oh, that's an asset to the family. We don't give our assets away. That's how we build assets. See, because that's what wealthy people are. Wealthy people are people that have lots of assets. So your labor is an asset. Your free time is an asset. Your intellect is an asset. Your energy is an asset. Your attention is an asset. And we are trained to give those assets away. I'm not judging anybody that puts their kids out of the house. I'm just saying that there's other ways to look at this. Number two, a lot of the owners, they live inside the hotel, so they're very frugal and they reinvest their profits. They call that plowback ratio. The plowback ratio determines how fast an asset is going to grow. So if you are investing in something and you invest relentlessly and consistently, it's going to grow faster than if you don't invest in it. So if you go to black communities and you see everything, the buildings abandoned, things torn down, streets where there's nothing going on, those are communities that don't receive investment. Or you see a family where the kids are splattered everywhere and there's lots of chaos and trauma and the children are not being properly guided. That's an asset that hasn't been invested in. So when you have an asset, you have to invest in it. Just like when you get a car, you got to put gas in it and you got to change the oil. So if you are busy investing in the white man's businesses, then you don't have time to invest in your own. And what you're also doing is you're investing in his family and you're investing in his community. That's why I can go to a city like like Chicago and I can go to the white neighborhoods in the north side and I see beautiful buildings, I see safe streets, I see all kinds of opportunity and prosperity. But I go to the west side of Chicago, which doesn't receive investment. I see chaos, I see dead babies, I see that nobody cares about, by the way. I see all kinds of trauma, chaos, broken families, all kinds of nonsense, right? So investing the frugality and the plowback ratio, like what you pour into is that which will grow. This is a simple idea. My mother used to say, Coco, anything that you put energy into is going to be successful. That's it. And what she was explaining was the plowback ratio. That if you want something to grow, you have to invest in it. You have to sacrifice it. Like that's not a complex idea, is it? That's a very simple concept, right? And so the question you want to ask yourself is, when you find deficiencies in your life, the question I turn to ask you is, well, what have you invested in dealing with that deficiency? For example, if your health is bad and you go to the doctor says, you got diabetes and heart disease. Well, I mean, not to be mean or anything, but I let you ask the question so you don't think I'm being an asshole when I do. But maybe a question to ask yourself is, well, how much time do I spend in the gym? Because people who invest time in the gym don't usually have those same problems that people who don't go to the gym, right? And then you say, "Well, I don't have time to go to the gym." Well, what's taking up your time? Because that really tells me what your priorities are. Well, I got to go to work. Oh, I get it. Okay, so I understand now. The reason that your life has fallen apart, your health, your relationship, everything else, is because you're heavily invested in the businesses owned by the people that you work for. That's what you're invested in. And this is a common problem. This is a pandemic. This is a plague. Many of us are trained to overinvest in these businesses, most of which are owned by white people, let's just be honest, and underinvest in ourselves, underinvest in our families, underinvest in our mental and physical health. And I encourage you to reconsider that relationship. I told you the greatest honor I've ever had in my life was to be the father and the head of a black household. So it would be silly for me to invest more time into my job than I put into learning how to do my job appropriately. My real job is not whatever I'm doing at that factory or at that office. My real job is making sure these babies get the best guidance possible. It's my real job is to figure out how to get along with my wife so we can maintain stability in the household. That's my important job. My real job is making sure that Boyce goes to the gym and stays in shape so he doesn't just drop dead all of a sudden for preventable causes, right? So really, I would encourage you to stop investing your time into Massa's job and invest some of that time into God's job, the job God gave you that supersedes the job that Massa gave you. Let's keep going. When you talk about the Patels, so a lot of them live inside the hotel, so they don't sort of go buy a hotel and then say, okay, now I can go get me a mansion to go with it and a Bugatti. You see this a lot, right? I'm going to Atlanta, and Atlanta is the home of the flashy, right? So you have people that'll start a little business. It might be a daycare or a hot dog stand, and next thing you know, they driving $100,000 car and living in a big mansion, trying to be the next Tyler Perry. Well, they don't really do that. Their families tend to look down on that flashy stuff, and so what they do is they say, "Why would you waste money when you can reinvest that money into your business?" So they actually live in the hotels that they actually buy until they can actually afford to do more. Also, they use something that's really valuable in business called sweat equity. Sweat equity is a type of wealth that is often ignored. Sweat equity is just your labor. This is a multi-trillion-dollar asset that's often ignored in the black community because a lot of people falsely believe that most wealth shows up in the form of money. You can have a ton of wealth in the room and have no money present. Money is these are these worthless little green pieces of paper called dollar bills and but really the real wealth is in things like sweat equity. That's why they pay you so much for your labor because it's valuable. So what the families do is they play every role inside the hotel. They say, why would we go hire people to run the hotel when we have hardworking, intelligent people in the family who we can give these jobs to? So front desk, housekeeping, maintenance, all that stuff. Those are usually jobs held by family members. And what that does is that builds equity very fast. It reduces the dependency on loans and it reduces the dependency on outsiders. All of these variables increase the probability that the business is going to succeed. So you got to understand that businesses have a very high failure rate. Black-owned businesses, 80% of black-owned businesses die in the first 5 years. So if you want to maximize the probability of success, you want to minimize the risk factors that can cause unnecessary failure within the business. For example, most businesses fail due to a lack of cash flow. All right. And so what that means is that frugal thinking is critical when you start a business. I've seen so many businesses die because they tried to do too much too fast, or they got access to a little bit of money and they really tried to blow it out so they could show out and show off for other people. And next thing you know, when the cash flow stops, there's struggles. I was just talking to Dr. Ken Harris today, and as we were planning the convention coming up. It's the National Business League and the All Black National Convention. We are partnering this year. And one thing Dr. Harris brought to my attention, which I thought was really interesting, is he said most black conferences are being canceled or shut down or scaled down because they were heavily dependent on unreliable financial sources. He said that we can brag about the fact that we're still doing it bigger than ever, because we don't need all that extra money. We didn't blow our budget. We're not spending above our means. Why? Well, because we know that dark times often come. And when they come, they come hard. And next thing you know, you're shutting everything down. You can't do everything the way you want to. Well, because maybe you were overly dependent on an unreliable financial source. I don't trust white people to take care of black people. I just don't. But I don't trust anybody to take care of black people. Sometimes I don't even trust a lot of black people to take care of black people. So at the end of the day, you have to figure out what's reliable and what's not. That's why, for example, when you start businesses and you start building wealth with other people and you find people you can work with, if you find sturdy people, stick with those sturdy people. If you find sturdy people, stick with those sturdy people. You find a sturdy wife, stick with that sturdy wife. You find a strong husband, stick with that strong husband. You find a good business partner, stick with that business partner. Get along with that partner. Resolve disputes. Communicate. Make sure that you do everything you can to hold on to that person. Because I can tell you, a sturdy business partner, a sturdy life partner, a sturdy friend is more valuable than gold. More valuable than gold. And when you have people like that in your life, you have to really, really monitor that asset like it is a bar of gold. You really do. So, for example, I have some really sturdy people that I get a chance to work with. Dr. Ken Harris, Lamar Tyler, a few others, Tierra Williams, others. And believe me, I am very careful with those relationships because these are great people that I really want to keep working with, because there's so many flimsy situations and flimsy people out here that that you can end up losing a lot. And so when you get a chance to connect with somebody that's really got your back, make sure you stand up and show up in the same way for them. That's really important to do. All right, so moving on. Community-based lending networks. That's one other thing they do. So a lot of investments with the Patels are financed not through banks. They're financed through something called social capital. Social capital means that if I know who you are, I don't need to check your credit score. I know where your mama lives. I've known you since we were babies. I know how you move, how you operate. I know what your integrity level is. And so it's not just important to seek out people like that, but also important to be a person like that, right? So when it comes to just little basic things, keeping your freaking commitments. Like we overlook the tiniest things when it comes to wealth, but some tiny things, like if you say I'm gonna call you Tuesday at 5 o'clock and then you just don't do it, well then what makes people think that what makes you think people are gonna trust you to loan you money? You can't even keep a basic commitment. You can't even show up on time. You can't, you said you was gonna give Pookie $40 on Friday and you didn't. And so a lot of times, I blame toxic hip hop for some of this. We have a lot of people that do a lot of talking and don't actually follow through on nothing. That's I told you, that was always my pet peeve with Diddy. Diddy would make a big tweet, "We're gonna buy the Carolina Panthers, y'all," and then you'd hear nothing else about it later. Like it would just go away. And I was like, "Well, I thought we were buying the Panthers. Like what happened?" And so what happens is that when people talk a big game about what they're about to do, and especially you men, it's really important for you because men, I think we get a natural deference. Like women that really respect men, give us a certain amount of testosterone based deference that says this man is confident, this man has a good vision, I'm going to get behind that. And the women have always supported, great black women have always been the backbone for great black men. So what happens is that when you have that great power, there's a responsibility that comes with that, so that you're not breaking people's hearts by making promises that you don't keep. And what happens is, and this is so deep. I'm not going to go too down far down this rabbit hole, but I blame media in the sense that a lot of it really started, I think, when you go back to the 70s and the mass promotion through media, again, by the same people who are killing babies in Palestine. They promoted the pimp culture in the black community. And what the pimp culture did, I say this as a black man in terms of what I saw from other men, is it taught men, a lot of men, not all men, but it taught many men that if you got a fast tongue and you can paint a picture with your words, your actions don't even matter. It doesn't matter if you're actually going to follow through with the vision. You just have to capture the imagination of a woman and get her to believe whatever little fairy tale fantasy you've painted for her. And then at that point, you're going to get what you want anyway. So what you do after that doesn't matter. So you can say things and your words can be as worthless as a dollar bill cut in 3,000 pieces. And in fact, I remember there was a guy, he was a friend of my brother, and he was real fat, and he had all these girlfriends, and people were like, how this fat guy get all these girls? And you know what he said? This is real, and this is something cultural. I think we should examine all this when it comes to wealth. He said, they said, well, the way he said, oh, it's easy to get these girls. They said, well, what do you got to do? He said, oh, you just got to sell a hoe a dream. I'm just using his exact words. He said, just sell a hoe a dream. Just sell her a dream. And that to me speaks to not just how a lot of people conduct themselves as human beings, but also that flips into financial relationships and business relationships. How many times, give me a yes or no. I want to make sure we connect the dots here so you don't think I'm talking all over the place. How many times have you seen somebody, a charismatic black man or black woman? Sometimes the women do it too, but a lot of times, unfortunately, it's the men. The pimp culture hit us the hardest. How many times have you seen, whether it's online or in person, a really charismatic man who gives a great presentation, knows how to look the part, speaks the words smooth as honey, beautiful vision. He's very articulate, and then he's the Wizard of freaking Oz. All if you pull back the curtain, ain't nothing back there. It's like fake it till you make it, but you ain't never gonna make it. It's like it is not fake it till you make it. It's fake it till you take it. Right? How many of y'all have seen that? This happens so often, and it irritates me because I've seen it. I've had people where I'm like, wow, he was so articulate. It sounded so good, but I didn't know that he was a criminal. Right? Whatever. Right? So what I'm saying is that you can't have that when you're talking about building a strong economy. Why? Well, because strong economies are built on trust. They're built on trust. They're built on trust. So when you're traumatizing people by making promises that you don't keep, when you are not a man of your word or a woman of your word, it breaks down black economics because then people get their money and they're like this. I can't tell you how many times I've had to spend literally years convincing people that I really know what I'm doing, that I'm not out here just BSing because they were scammed so often by other black people. It's happened so often. I met a guy. He was a great guy. He might even be in here. He's like an FBI agent or maybe he's Secret Service, something like that, right? So I met him and his wife, and literally because they'd run into so many other people that looked like us that were fast talking and didn't follow through with anything. He said it took me about 5 years to trust you. And I said, well, did I earn your trust? He said, yeah. I said, that means a lot because I know that a Secret Service agent, FBI agent, whichever one he was, I know that you guys, my was a police detective, right? I know how critical and skeptical you guys are. So it's nice that we met the standard, but this is the problem though, right? Businesses are built heavily on trust. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world largely because his investors really trust him. When he lays out a vision and a framework, they say, "Oh, we believe in that." And in fact, actually, just so you don't think that this is purely a black thing, um, even some of the white investors of Elon Musk are starting to question whether his visions are trustworthy because they started looking at his track record and they were like, wait, in 2016, you said we'd have a million driverless cars on the road by 2017. And here it is 2025 and it still hasn't happened. So to some extent, even white guys can get some of that. that sort of talking sort of thing. But I think that what's happened is he's done enough things successfully that people are willing to look past some of that, right? He has actually launched some rockets. He actually had the Tesla robots, right? So there's enough there, but still though he's kind of teetering um with trust in the sense that people are starting to not trust his vision as much as they did before. So what I'm saying to you from a business standpoint, just my little 2 cents is really think carefully about the words that come out of your mouth. Think carefully about what you promise and make sure you can deliver it because behind the flash, there has to be substance. There's nothing wrong with flash. Sometimes people need flash, right? It gets them excited. It lights up the dopamine receptors in their brain. I get it. But after the flash, there has to be some substance. And I see so many times where people will have all flash and there's literally nothing there because they literally believe that if I just simply learn how to say it in the right way, that's just as valuable as me actually doing anything. So anyway, let me keep going. So here with the Patel family, what's interesting to me, or that name, it's not one family, it's the Patels, right? And the other thing too is that the Patels don't actually own 70. I think the guy said they own 70% of the hotels in America. That's not true. I think they own more like 25% or something like that, right? And it's not one family, it's just sort of a collective of people. But anyway, so let's keep going here. So we talked about substance and flash. Also, one other thing that they do in addition to lending based on social capital, because there's trust when you borrow money from each other. And I want you to contrast that with how many black people you know who've literally said, "That's why I don't loan money to relatives." Right. This is why the trustworthiness piece is so important. Also, they tend to buy hotels that are small and distressed. And so they will buy a hotel that is a fixer-upper. Again, pour wealth into it, not through money, but through energy and time. Fix it up and then refinance after that, after they upgrade. And also, they will they love franchising. They either will buy into a franchise, an existing franchise, or they will sell a franchise. And franchising is a great pathway to economic independence. In fact, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the Black Business School, there's an excellent franchising course taught by attorney Tanya Nebo, and the material's still there. If you go to blackmoney104.com, blackmoney104.com, you can feel free to take a look at it. Maybe that's something your family can look into as a path to building wealth. Use the code word morning40, morning40, all one word. It'll take 40% off. So feel free to go and use the code morning40, blackmoney104.com. Also, what else? They keep it in the family. We talked about that in the book, The Ten Commandments of Black Economic Power. Children are raised in the business, so they do something that is one of the core values of the Black Business School, which is educate your own children. And in fact, if you educate your children the right way, using life as a university, then you get to the point where they don't even need to go to school. Honestly, I really think that could be, a reality for a lot of people. I'm not saying do that, but I am saying that is true. So ultimately, raising your kids in the business, what that does is that forms a tether, a connection to the business for the child when they are young, and so you don't have to talk them into it when they get older, because it's hard to talk a teenager into working for the family business when you've never ever actually invested time in bringing that child in around the business. Okay. So what else? So by keeping it in the family, the wealth stays concentrated. That's how they pass things down, businesses down to children. A lot of black businesses are being given away or dying because there is no successor. The person maybe starting the business, invested all their time in the business, but no time training the kids. So the kids don't want the business. So the business ends up being sold, or the business just ends up dying. And a lot of wealth gets lost that way. Also, when they buy property, they don't buy it based on glamour or emotion. They buy property based on cash flow. That's really important. So they're not trying to impress the Joneses down the street. They buy things based on what generates the best cash flow, and that's pretty much it. Those are some lessons that you can learn from that. So as you develop your family business model, I encourage you to make sure you have a model, and whatever that model is, try to see if you can make sure that you coach everyone on the model, on the principles of the family. A lot of you are patriarchs and matriarchs of your family. Some of y'all are grandmas and grandfathers. Some of you are mothers and fathers. Some of you are going to be parents. Take that leadership role. And really, truth is that even if you're not in that role, the fact that you know so many things, that you know that you've been spending each morning with a professor of finance, and you have all this knowledge that's sort of sitting in your head, that might give you a natural leadership role. People tend to listen to people that are competent. So if you show up with ideas that are better and different than what everyone else has been exposed to, a lot of smart people will just listen just to see what you have to say. And so those family business meetings, I encourage everyone to have those, because that's really a great way for you to connect with each other. And then before you correct, you must connect. So once you connect, you can then start to say, okay, why don't we look over here, look over there. So my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, is kind of written to be a guideline for that sort of thing. So feel free to go to drboycebooks.com if you'd like to take a look at that book, drboycebooks.com. Okay, guys, I got to get out of here. We're about to head down to Atlanta tomorrow, and I got a guy coming to clean out the car and stuff. So I got to go meet him in a couple minutes. So if you have not gotten on the text list for this class, just pull out your phone, text the word morning to the number 87948, text morning to 87948. And also, the URL above my head, blackmoney101.com, is a great place to go to get introduced to the power of money. So feel free to take a look at that. Tomorrow, I'll do the liquid landlord presentation and kind of show you in a very simple, straightforward, step-by-step way that literally you could start a business tomorrow and start making money tomorrow, particularly using stock options. And some of you already know this, but those who don't know,